Okay, in this lesson we're going to look at a bunch of stuff related to owning a house, having to get a mortgage. There's a few things that we need to be aware of. So there's a few fill in the blanks here. Let's see if we can just go through this. The gross debt service ratio compares the total cost of your monthly mortgage payment, your property taxes, and your heating costs to your gross monthly income. This is kind of saying, if these are your expenses and this is how much you make, are you in good shape or not? Okay, and I'll show you what that means. Generally speaking, the gross debt service ratio should be 32% or above. Okay, so more than 32%. Therefore, if the gross debt service ratio of a house or a home is less than 32%, you can afford your home. So again, it should not be 32% above. It shouldn't be a big number. It should be less than 32. Okay, if it's more than 32%, you cannot afford the home. Now I know some people say, yes, I can afford the home. I won't buy this, I won't buy that, I'll save this, and I'll just spend more of my income to a house for the house. This is sort of a rough way that banks decide, can we give you this mortgage? Can we give you a mortgage that's this high based on the things that are costing you money? Okay, the formula that you use, the gross debt service ratio, okay, it's a ratio, and on the top you're going to have what is your monthly mortgage payment plus what is your monthly property tax plus what is your monthly heating. And I'm not going to put just heating there, but let's put utility costs. And that's all going to be over your monthly income. And because we want to look at it as a percent, we're going to multiply by 100%. Okay, so let's take a look at a question. Before we go, note the gross debt service ratio is based on gross pay before deductions, not net pay. So let's keep that in mind, it's gross pay. The closer the gross debt ratio is to 32%, the more difficult it is to budget for other expenses. I guess it should be closer. Okay, so example 1. We're looking at this family here. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to figure out what is the gross debt service ratio. Okay, so first of all, we need to know the mortgage payment. What are they paying for mortgage? Well, if we read it, it does not say what the mortgage is. It just says it's buying a 2-story house, purchase price of $110,000. The family can put $25,000 down, so they have that money. The family's gross monthly income is $3,800. Well, I can put that down here already. That's gross monthly income. The family's expected their financial institution to offer them a fixed rate mortgage at a rate of 7.75%. Tells you what the taxes are and the heating costs. Put it all in here. Well, what we don't have is the mortgage, but we have the property tax and we have the heating costs. What we need to do is we need to figure out the mortgage. So how do we figure out the mortgage? Well, we've been doing this for a little bit now. Let's take a look at it. So the mortgage is $110,000, but there's a down payment of $25,000. So I'm going to put $100,000, take away $25,000. Okay. Interest rate is 7.75. Does it say what the rate is? Family's expected their financial institution offer them a fixed rate mortgage. Well, it's usually 2 times a year because it doesn't say. Okay, how many payments? We're going to do monthly payments, and it's over 15 years, so 15 times 12. And we want to get the final value to 0. What are the monthly payments? They would be $794.14. That goes here. Okay, and now you can figure out what the gross debt service ratio is. If we put this all in the calculator, you're going to get 29.67%. And since it's less than 32, we're going to say, therefore, the Menzies can afford this house. Okay, and we should probably say, since it is less than 32%. Now, that's a basic question. All of those parts are pretty legit, except for, honestly, it's going to be almost impossible to find a house for that price, and very unlikely the interest rate would be that high. Okay, so maybe the question is a little bit dated, but you kind of get the idea of what we're doing here. Okay, let's try another one. So it says Donald and Alex have combined gross monthly income of $5,500. Okay, they want to buy a house in a neighborhood where the average monthly heating costs are $200 a month and taxes are $325 a month. You guys, I just made a mistake. Go back here. Some of you are wondering, I didn't get that number. That's because I should have gone 2,500 divided by 12 and 1,500 divided by 12, because those numbers were the annual. So why did I divide by 12 here? Because I want to try to get it to monthly. Sorry, I totally forgot to write that down. Hopefully that makes more sense now. Okay, so back to this. Calculate the maximum monthly mortgage payment. So this is what we're supposed to find. Calculate the maximum monthly mortgage payment. So if I were to write this formula, so this is mortgage plus property tax plus heating all over income. Okay, this time what we're supposed to find is the mortgage payment. What is the maximum payment we can find? So let's put this as 32, since this is the highest. This is the max it could be. We're going to figure out what the mortgage is. All right, the taxes are $325 a month, and the heating is $200 a month, and they make $5,500 a month. So, how do you do this question? Let's think about this as being an x. The x is what we want to find. Okay, so we want to try to isolate that x. All right, let's condense things a little bit. So I'm going to go 32, and on the top, if I go 325 plus 200, I get 525 plus x over 5,500 times 100. Okay, now you got to remember your algebra. How do I get x by itself? Well, you could guess and check, not a good method. All right, instead, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get rid of this 100. How do I get rid of the 100? Well, the opposite operation is to divide by 100. So I'm going to divide by 100. So this would give me 0.32 equals 525 plus X over 5,500. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to multiply both sides by 5,500. Okay, so that will cancel this. What I need to do is I need to figure out what is 5,500 times 0.32. And that turns out to be 1,760. Okay, and so now I'm going to subtract 525 from both sides. And so X is $1,235. So that's the maximum monthly mortgage payment they can afford. Okay, so really not a complicated question, we just have to remember how to do some algebra. Okay, so part B, based on the maximum monthly mortgage payment, so in other words, this is going to be my payment. Okay, what is the maximum house price I can afford? Okay, well it tells us that we're going to do a 25-year mortgage. It tells us the interest rate is 3.5% compounded twice a year, semi-annually. And we want to end up with 0. This gives you one unknown. What is that unknown? If you put it in the TVM solver, 247, 360.98. Okay, now that's the maximum mortgage, so let's put that, max mortgage. But remember they had that $20,000. This is down payment. This means the maximum they can afford is when you add those two up. So that's the maximum house price. Okay. So I think that's the end of this lesson. There's a bunch of homework down here. Okay, so go ahead and try that. Remember the answer keys are all posted. Let me know if you have questions.